Today, the Australian Manufacturers Championship Series concludes a massive year of production car-based endurance racing, with two 200k races set to conclude 6 class championships and the overall title of Australia's top ace in this series for the cars you can drive on the road. As the AM Champs conclude, there's still plenty of racing left in the Kumho V8s, with an intense battle between Ryan Simpson and Justin Brugier, each representing Holden and Ford respectively, flying out into the series' final 2 rounds. So there really is plenty to play for this weekend when the Shannons Nationals get to Wakefield Park.
Hello and welcome to Wakefield Raceway for the final round of the Australian Manufacturers Championship. Fierce title battles will play out across the classes today, and the pressure at the top is between the Evos and the BMWs. Beric, BMWs, they look like they've got the edge. I mean, it's been a tough season for you. You're in the box seat. How confident are you of staying there?
Look, you know, it's going to be tough to beat the Evos at this track. It's a tight, short track, so it suits the four-wheel drive cars better. But in saying that, we're both going to have to stop for fuel. Our stop should be shorter, so if we can be with them during the race, that might give us a leg up at the end, but it should be a good weekend.
A tough ask indeed. It will go down to the wire in Class A, and also keep your eye on the Sharon brothers. They're pushing for the outright points.
Welcome to the Showroom Showdown, where cars you can buy on the streets all around Australia are tweaked and tuned and turned into proper racing cars with that road-going flavour. This is the Australian Manufacturers Championship. The AM Champ continues the tradition of motorsport improving the breed of road-going vehicles and is structured into 6 separate classes. Outright high-performance categories, the super quick 4-wheel and rear-wheel drive cars like Mitsubishi's Lancer Evo and the stunning BMW 1M lead the way. Class C caters for performance variants of mid-range road-going cars like Mazda's 3 MPS, while classes D and E cater for every price point in between and allow Honda Integras to battle Toyota 86s and Renaults to take on BMWs. And in the classic tradition of Aussie motorsport, the AM Champs are fought out over a series of long-distance races throughout the season, with the shortest race clocking in at a hefty 200k's. Little more than 100 days ago, Queensland teenager Brock Giblin was badly burned in a racing crash at Sydney Motorsport Park. But this weekend at Wakefield Park, he's back, out of hospital and supporting the Osborne Motorsport team. Summer Bow caught up with the impressive young man.
So fantastic to have you back. I mean, it was a terrifying incident. Tell us about it from your point of view.
From my point of view, it was quite horrific, but from everybody else's, it was probably a bit worse. Luckily, I don't quite remember a lot of it. I remember waking up in the ambulance and going back to sleep and waking up 4 weeks later. But after that, there wasn't really much to it. I know Ryan McLeod and Matt Cherry had a massive part of it. Also, the Osborne Motorsport and the family. It's just been horrific, and everybody's just been there for me.
We have all been thinking about you, and it's been months out. How have you found the rehab and getting your mind straight to come back?
The mind still needs a little work. I still get a little bit emotional, but you know, that happens. Physically, I'm working on it. I'm getting a bit better. It's hard to recall because I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I do know it was pretty scary times for everybody. Mum wants me to play chess with a helmet now, so I got to try and work that one out. But
we hope obviously that you return to racing. Can we look forward to a certain date? Do you think it's just take it step by step?
Date probably not, but maybe halfway, 3/4 through next year is probably the aim. But I got to recover 130% before I come back to the car.
We're really proud of you doing an awesome job. I mean, keep your head up. This builds the resolve that great champions are forged from.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'll do my best, I guess.
Sure is a beautiful day to wrap up the Australian Manufacturers Championship for 2014. It's been a great season of endurance-based production car racing. Darren Smithy is alongside me for this, and all of the championships have had something going for them.
They certainly have, Richard, and yes, the endurance format has worked very, very well. Beric Linton leading the way in Class A over Stewie Koskira. And then we've got Class B, Grant Sharon with Ian Sharon, Peter O'Donnell, BMWs across the board there, and Richard Gartner in his Renault.
It really is the BMW B class. Jake Camilleri, an untouchable, leading Class C in front of Rick Shaw and Michael Sloss. Kevin Herban just needed to finish race 1 on Saturday to wrap up the Class D title in front of Grant Phillips and Andrew Turpey in the Petters Suspension Toyota 86. So we'll go back and take a look at what happened for you in race 2. A beautiful day at Wakefield Park, and as always we take a look at Class D and E first. But from pole in the outright battle, it was Beric Linton in the BMW after a great win in Saturday. Holden Costera started alongside the Mitsubishi Lancer, but cast your eyes back just a smidgen to the baby classes in the AmCham. We love this battle. It's been great fun all season long. In Class C, it's the Mazda 3 MPSs and the BMW 130i's. Class D, it's those cars there, the Conroy Motorsport Honda Integra Type R's up against that Toyota 86 GS.
The great thing about it, Richard, is not only the message on the side of the Osborne Motorsport car, but also Kevin Herban and many of the other cars sending those messages out to Brock Giblin, and it was great to see Brock at the track earlier on today as well.
So the race started in perfect conditions, and it was on early. Kev Herban, with championship pressure out of the way, was having a great little battle with the 27 car, Alan Shepard. Gauchi driving that BMW 130i for GWS Racing. It was a great fight, and he had the gloves off because the championship was done and dusted as he wrapped it up by finishing a fuel conservation drive on Saturday. Wanted to go hard in this one and wasn't worrying about fuel at all.
Certainly wasn't, and the battle was a ripper, as it always has been at Eastern Creek earlier on this year. The whole entire 4 hour, those two Class D cars, the Hondas, were just glued together. One would go to the pits, the next lap the other one would go, and then 2 laps later they'd be line astern again. And it's not like they're just following each other around. It's actually an internal battle between the team.
Jake Williams back aboard the second of the 2 cars from Conroy Motorsport in Class D, at least, as we saw the Petters car go by. Jake's just spent a massive stint overseas. He's a Black Rhino trainer at the Western Plains. So Grand Prix Mazda are having a good weekend. Summer was down in pit lane catching up after their pit activities.
Joseph, firstly, congratulations on wrapping up the championship, but what has happened just here?
Blowing a radiator hose. Don't know what's going on there, so we're being a bit casual this weekend, so maybe, blowing a radiator hose, we fixed it. We think we can still do this. We want to win our class again today, so we had 5 laps yesterday on the other car, so Jake's determined to get out there and do it again, so.
Ripper beard he's got going there too, Joseph Camilleri, brother Jake doing the business in that.
And a nice week at Summer to finish it off as well.
Not wrong, that giant killing Mazda 3 MPS, and they were really on the comeback trail. Jake finished 5th outright and won his class comfortably in the opening race. This is always an attribute of AmCham Racing, the faster A and B cars carving their way through. There was an outright battle for the lead. But look at this, the 2 Hondas just inseparable on the racetrack once again. And that goes right back to the very start of the season when we saw that rather dramatic Formula One style Team Orders incident in the Sandown 3 hour way back in March at the start of the season. But they continued their scrubble. A great fight between all 3 cars. The Hondas and the Toyotas evenly matched in Class D.
And they certainly have just got right out of the way of the Class A and B cars coming through on them there. This is Herban now chasing the other DC5 Honda. If you're an aficionado of Hondas, these are the DC5s.
They've been a venerable warhorse in AmCham competition, and this was Herban and his teammate Jake Williams having a ripper stoush, these two. And Kev in the Candy Warehousing car was just driving it exceptionally hard and said to us after Saturday's race, didn't like it, was hard, was conserving fuel, limping around. It's not the way I want to race, but he just needed to finish to get the points to wrap up the title. Now it was gloves off. This, however, was a massive moment for the 35 car. A big lose down at turn 2, Rick Shaw and Michael Sloss. The second of the 2 GWS personnel BMWs, the Sennheiser car.
And Fat Armin it too, look at that, just palming away on the wheel there.
It was a big slide.
It was a big slide.
Ultimately gathered it up and would regain track position.
By Sennheiser written on the helmet, that would have been Rick Shaw. And he's in.
And this was the team's pit stop. So the baby class cars able to go a lot further than the A-class cars on fuel economy. Michael Sloss jumped out of the BMW 135i after a good stint and spoke to Summer Bogue in pit lane.
You look exhausted but elated. Tell us about that.
Oh, that is sensational. Just so much fun there. We were toasting with Shep, and he's a veteran, so looking at what he does is a good way to learn. But you've got to get past these old guys because they've got to give way to the youth, and we're going to get in there. Sorry, Shep, had to say that. But fantastic day. You know, the boys have prepared a great car, and it was good there. Just pushed a little bit hard there in through the kink, and that was it. But no, very good fun. Very good fun enjoying it. It's fantastic.
Well, that's an excitable Michael Sloss after a really good stint. And those two BMWs, Daz, probably not as well suited to this place perhaps as the Grand Prix Mazda 3 MPS and indeed the Osborne Motorsport car, but they had a great battle the whole way through.
They certainly did, and I reckon if we catch up with Alan Shepherd at any point, he'll say these young blokes keep getting in my way and reckon they can just own the track and stuff like that as well. Good little bit of niggling aggro in the team there, love it.
So the two BMs switched positions on the run down to turn one as the Eastern Creek Karts Mitsubishi Lancer carved its way through. Here's the sister car, so we might get that opportunity to hear from Shep. The 27 entry into pit lane. Shep jumps out. His teammate jumps into the car. Gary Manel on the belts. Let's hear more from Alan Shepherd in the lane.
Wow, you came straight in. The water was on. What a race.
Yeah, no, all I needed to do was get some water onto me and just get the core temperature down. It's pretty hot out there for an old bugger, so it's a lot of fun though.
Here's the Pettis team.
Shameless fun too, isn't
correct.
it?
With a few battle scars on the Toyota 86. After a pretty solid run in the Saturday race, they finished 10th outright, Grant Phillips and Andrew Turpey. Meanwhile, this unbelievable Honda fight continued.
Yeah, it's almost the white one versus the black one from behind, the Candy Warehousing one versus the DBA Brakes one as they come down the straight. It looks like it's Kevin Herbin's chance to lead here. He's been lining him up pretty much all season for a pass, and a championship victory, which he's all but signed off on the win or the victory he had in his class yesterday.
And Fuel Games was still playing a game in terms of this race and the way it was all playing out, and whether they'd have to make it to the end on another stop or not. So Jake Williams just dropped the position, Herbin driving that car hard. Meanwhile, on the comeback trail was the Grand Prix Mazda car, Jake Camilleri, but unfortunately their day wasn't going quite so well. We heard the broken radiator hose early on. Meanwhile, Grand Prix Mazda out, the Osborne Motorsport team in, and how good was it to see Brock Giblin at the track watching on Colin Osborne and Nick Lange having a really solid day in the Mazda 3.
Yeah, it's a relaxed affair. Obviously the old pump-up style jack there. It's a hark back to manufacturers' championships of old where all these manual tools are used. And so Herbin just going slowly there, and there's been issues with the gearbox on this car, stuck in fourth gear.
Yeah, and Kev was having overheating issues on the 14 car as well and was trying to find some cool air. It was a pretty wild race for Kev, having wrapped up the championship, and Jake Williams was out in front doing the business. He lost some time, but yeah, gearbox issues, and reporting at the end that the car was basically stuck in fourth gear. So that was an issue, and this was more issues for Jake Camilleri, and very much stay done with some big dramas in the front end of the Grand Prix Mazda 3. A sad end to what had been a pretty strong season for this crew.
He's still sitting in the car there as we've got Summer with Gus Robbins.
Just wondering if you can explain what's happening now while you're waiting here.
Yeah, just running a bit low on fuel. Started coughing coming around the turn one, so I thought I'd better pull in and just wait.
It's tough racing this weekend.
No, I'm just cruising around. I'm the only Class E car, so I'm just trying to get some experience in some longer races, really. Trying to keep out of the big boys' way.
Yep, and he said it, he is the only Class E car in the Mazda 323 Estina. In the end, the checkered flag came out, a great 6th overall, and a Class C win for Colin Osborne and Nick Lange in the Osborne Motorsport Mazda 3 MPS. Just behind them, Jake Williams on the same lap won Class D, with Grant Phillips and Andrew Turpey second in class and 8th overall. A really strong performance. Rick Shaw and Michael Sloss took out second in Class C in front of their teammate Shepherd and Gauci in the second of the BMW 130Is, with Kevin Herbin rounding out the top 3 in Class D.
Yeah, I'm feeling great. It's been a great weekend. Thank you to everyone at Conroy Motorsport for giving me a good car and giving me the opportunity to grab some experience in the AMC. It's been great.
Yeah, it means a lot to us. It sort of draws a line under a year that's been a bit eventful. Our team's worked really hard. It's been great to have Nick on board. I hope he comes back next year. But this one's for the boys and the crew, and especially for Brock.
So Class C taken out by Jake Camilleri, 478 points over Rick Shaw, 375. Michael Sloss home in third place. Class D was Kevin Herbin on 509 points, Andrew Turpie, Grant Phillips and Luke King rounding out the five.
Great racing in classes E, D and C in the AM Champs. After the break, the big bangers are out. The outright fight will be decided for 2014. The Australian Manufacturers Championship here at the Shannons Nationals. Wakefield Park Raceway, the final round of the Australian Manufacturers Championship, and the outright fight is still very much up for grabs in the AmChamp Series. It's time to take a look, thanks to Hankook, at Class A and B. BMW versus Mitsubishi, with the Audi TTRS thrown in for good measure. And after a great battle in Saturday's opening race, Darren Smith, once again it was Berwick Linton v Gary Holt and Stuart Costera at the front of the field. Holty, the first on board the Eastern Creek Karts Evo.
He certainly was, and Holty last year at this exact same event brought Nathan Morecambe along and polled race 1 and race 2. A little bit different this year. The BMWs have come through their development phase, and interestingly enough, there is an Audi TTRS starting to hunt these guys down as well.
Yeah, and that car's only going to get better and better. Grant and Ian Sherrin had it all to do this weekend. It didn't start well for them. They had to swap cars, and Michael Sherrin and David Ayres had to hand over the sister car so those two boys could fight for the outright championship. Speaking of fighting, it was on in the opening laps.
It certainly was, and I actually liked the car 19 over the car 18. It's been dubbed the supermodel at the track over the last 18 months or so. It just looks good. It's a good-looking car, the 135i. But Holty is leading early, or led early, and Berwick Linton is certainly matching it for pace. And great to see Luke Searle back in this U1 M135.
Yeah, so they made the debut of this car at this very round 12 months ago, and it was very, very impressive. Some reliability dramas curtailed their performance, but they've come back with a vengeance this weekend. Luke Searle and Barry Graham. Searle started that car, and it was a fantastic scrap in the opening laps, and we've seen this so much this year, but Berwick Linton was probably the surprised performer out of these three this weekend, because he thought this was a track that would suit the Evos. As it turned out, he was in very, very good touch. But this was a ripper scrap for the lead of the motor race.
So early on, these three were absolutely glued together. This Evo 10 that has been so successful in AmChamps type racing, production type racing, shod with the Hankooks, really has been just the car to beat for so long now. Started out years back, 4 or 5 years back with TMR, and now this still on their winning ways. But the new technology coming out of BMW right behind them is certainly acquitting itself very well.
Yeah, Holt really enjoyed this battle at the start of the race with the knowledge that he could put Triple Champ Stuart Costera in, but there was always going to be a difference in fuel between the BMW and the Evos. The Evos do tend to be a little more thirsty, but this was a ripper scrap. They were side by side, they swapped positions, it was all clean, it was all fair, and it was pretty much where they left off in race 1 on Saturday, but the BMW ultimately got through on Holty and took the race lead. But it pretty much sums up AmChamp racing for the last couple of years, I think, this scrap between these two cars, and Luke Searle in there as well, having a really good scrap in that still pretty new and yet to be fully developed BMW, which has got a huge amount of potential for season 2015.
Yeah, that one certainly has. Well, it's a shame that we couldn't get the Marshalls back up here in the MPC Evo as well. They did very well early on. They missed it around. Have a look at this.
Yeah, this was Holty just
losing it.
Barreling down into turn 10. just carried a little bit too much car speed and lost some momentum there. But at this stage in the game, everything's starting to settle itself down in this outright fight. And these three cars, really the class of the field. Now, what Berwick Linton was doing at this stage was extending his lead and closing in on the Sherrin boys in the outright Am Champ title. So not just the Class A and Class B championships at stake, but the outright fight as well. And this was a moment for Holty at the top of Wakefield Park.
Yeah, he went round and was very, very close to their pit window as well. So Holty just hits the fire button and looks like he's got a gearbox of nothing there, but just trying to pick himself a slot, and there it is.
Got the car fired
and get going away again.
It does take some time to reboot. You've got to go all through the electronic systems in these cars, shut it down, refire it, and a bit of heat soak didn't help the cause. So it took some time, and as a result, he lost plenty of time, and then decided that probably should go to pit lane because of that, and an interesting approach into pit lane there for Holty.
It certainly was. It's the agricultural approach.
It's a four-wheel drive, it's fine.
Absolutely, you can do that. Any other day of the week, a tractor would be mowing the lawn that day.
And the first stop done, belts coming off for Gary Holt, seat back, and the triple champ Stuart Costera over from WA jumps into that car. Holty had a wild and woolly stint. He scrapped for the lead, he spun, he rejoined but drove really well, and he put up with Summerbogue afterwards.
Wow, Gary, I mean, the margin is so tight for this championship. Spun as you were coming in. How the devil are you feeling?
Oh, well, it was a good race. No, I just was pushing too hard. You know, I was right on the limit. And, yeah, it just got me. A bit of dirt over there. And, yeah, it's my mistake. So I had to make a quick decision. When I came around this corner here, I felt the back of the car. So I think the tyre's flat or something's gone wrong. That's why I came in straight away. So, you know, it's going to be hard to make up, but you never know because we've got our compulsory pit stop out of the way. Stewie will do a good job. You know, he'll get into clear air, you know.
It was all pretty confusing in the mid-stage, but a great fight continued on with the BMWs, and Luke Searle really started to apply the pressure, Daz, to race leader Berwick Linton.
Hey, Gaz, we're at Wakefield Parkway. That's where we are. So he's having a good run. Very excited racer, and he's one of those guys that just loves his motorsport.
This was a good fight. BMW's on, and you can see their fuel advantage just ploughing on. They can go longer in the stint, the BMWs. Be better on economy. And it was a good drive by Luke Searle too in the early stages. Doesn't get a lot of racing in these days, though word on the street is that they'll be back for the full Am Champ next year. This is a cool car and literally on fire, the Audi TT RS in its second ever race meeting. Alan Heathing's crew going to work, Matt Cherry and Glenn Cribb behind the wheel.
Some good media about these guys and the build of this car in the lead up to in the Racing Australian magazine as well. Good glossy pics and a technical article, bit of a Q&A with Alan Heathy, who needs absolutely no introduction in building any sort of racing car.
Well, pretty much responsible for the initial development of the Evo that they're trying to knock off in Am Champ racing. So a lot of potential in that TT. Really, really cool car, and it's great to see some new shapes in the Am Champ series. These were the BMWs leading the way and closing in on some of the lap traffic, and it's such a part of production car racing, has been for so long and always will be, the speed differentials, and it's the guy that manages all this the best as over the course of the race is ultimately the one that generally comes out in front.
Well, that is correct, Richard, and it's all about being fast when you have to be to fend off or to secure yourself a lead, and then conserving, as we're seeing the Luke Searle, Barry Graham car refueling. So they've done that, ticking the boxes as the day goes by. Stewie Costera back at the wheel there of the Eastern Creek Karts Evo 10.
It was interesting talking to Holty about driving with Costera. He's had some pretty good teammates over the years, says Holty. Rates Costera right up there with the very best of them, and man, he's had some good guys through his ranks, including the likes of Paul Morris and John Bow, who he won a Bathurst 12-hour with. Says Costera is every bit as good in one of these cars. And we know that. He's won 3 championships, so he's pretty handy, and his middle stint of this race was impressive, making up for that lost time before the stop and driving this car very, very hard as he always does, but safely as well, and conservatively enough to make sure they get it to the flag.
Yeah, certainly. Stuart Costera needs absolutely no introduction. Massive experience in Formula 3, GTs, all sorts of things, and just a dab hand at AmChamps type racing as well. These guys here, they have been fantastic all throughout the year, leading the AmChamps, not only outright, but in their class, in Class B.
Yeah, if anything, I think the longer distance races, the 3 and 4 hour races that make up a bulk of the AmChamp schedule, probably suit the little Class B BMW even better, because it doesn't give up a huge amount of pace to the A-Class cars, but it's got advantages in pit stops and needs to spend less time in pit lane. I don't think these 200k races that we've seen in the last 2 rounds at Queensland Raceway in here at Wakefield suit the little Class B BMWs quite as well as perhaps it does the A-Class cars, which have got a little bit more grunt you need in the shorter races. So the news that the final round, the Australian 4-hour, will be the final round of the AmChamp Series in 2015 will help the Sherrans, and ultimately their outright championship fight wouldn't quite go to plan, though Class B was very much theirs all season long. So a quick pit stop for the Sherran Rentals outfit. Ian Sherran jumped out of the car, brother Grant jumped in. Summer was right on the scene.
Ian, we're figuring about 50 degrees in the car out there, and it's down to the wire. How's it all going in the championship points?
Yeah, it's very close. There's a couple of people still out there. Obviously, Berwick's in front of us. So, yeah, it's all going to depend on a couple of results today and how far we can get up there. So, fingers crossed we'll be able to hang on and keep that championship.
And that was the pressure. This was the final stop for Stuart Costera. And this was just cleansing the field. Everyone getting their final stops out of the way. Full tank of juice, and away Stewie went to get back out in the fight. So the Sherran boys, you heard from Ian Sherran there, wondering about where they would finish up. 4th place in race 1, 2nd in Class B behind Luke Searle and Barry Graham, as race leader Beric Linton brought the Alfera Financial Services Bruce Linton BMW car into the lane.
Interesting that the BMW 1M has already been analysed by the guys at PPE with Alan Heathy. They had started the year with Matt Cherry and the team in a 1M, and they just decided that it was probably just a little bit feisty a car, a little bit of a handful over the distance of the long distance races, so the Audi's slightly different there. So Summer has got Luke Searle.
Luke, fantastic racing all weekend. What's working for you? What's not? What needs to come together?
Listen, it was hectic at the start. I didn't want to interfere with anyone's championship, so I just sat back and watched. Unfortunately, Gary made a bit of a mistake there, which would have been a good race, but everything's going well with the car. Yesterday we're having brake issues, today we're not, so everything's going well at this stage, and it's up to Barry to bring it home.
It was a great fight. Now, these cars still had 1 stop to go. Gary Holt, though, now at this stage was basically more than a lap behind, had got both the stops done in the Eastern Creek Karts car. So Stewie Costera could press on to the end. These two were squabbling over the race lead, but still had a stop to go.
They certainly have, and I suppose testament to Gary's little indiscretion heading up to the last corner there early on in the race. They've got those stops out of the way. And it is one of those things that we say in AmChamp racing, be relentless like Stewie Costera. Just punch out 65, 65, 65, and we just know that that's what he's going to be doing, because Stewie Costera is probably one of the most relentless drivers on a chase down that you'll find.
Yeah, this was the 20 car getting past Luke Searle, Barry Graham behind the wheel. Vastly experienced driver. Hasn't done a lot of racing recently and said he was just a little bit raw for a distance race like this, but Costera dealt with him pretty quickly and charging up the road with the knowledge that Beric Linton in the number 40 BMW still had a stop to go. The overlap could get interesting and it could get close towards the end, and this was that final stop.
Dry brake fuel in the boot there, so it's tucked away nice and neatly in the back of the car. Crew straight onto it. Of course, you're not allowed to do anything else when you're doing fuel. It's part of the safety. You're just doing fuel. There's no wheels coming off. There's nothing else to be attended to on the car. And that's what we're seeing here. And timed amount of fuel going in. There it is. Time up and away you go.
So these were all the final stops. So after that stop sequence concluded, Beric Linton led the way. The Sherrans were a couple of laps back in the number 19 car in P5. And then we found the gap back to Stuart Costera, who was absolutely flying. Now, at this stage in the race, he was about half to 3/4 of a lap quicker per lap than the race leader. So he was hauling in Beric Linton. The big question would be, would he have enough time to do it?
Yeah, the age-old question. We push on now, how many laps to go and how much faster. And indeed, we're counting that down. And as I said, be relentless like Costera. And that is what he's doing, his own mantra. Keeping it up and just letting them know, because they'll be on the radio saying, it was 15 seconds. It's now 12 seconds. It's now 8 seconds. And we're still 10 laps to go. So it's the battle, and it really does get a tad confusing in the middle of the race.
At the end,
encouragement, though.
Yeah, encouragement for Berwick Linton. The gap came down from 30 seconds to 12 at the line, so Costera hauled it down, but Berwick Linton did the double at Wakefield Park, won both 200k races, an outstanding performance and a double win that ultimately got him not only the Class A title, but wrestled the outright AmChamp title away from the Sherrin crew. Well done to Berwick Linton, a great victory with Gary Holt and Stuart Costera third. Luke Sell, Barry Graham an excellent fourth. Crimp and Cherry in the Audi TTRS. Man, that car has got some promise. They were fourth, and Grant and Ian Sherrin, they've had a brilliant season. They rounded out the top 5.
Probably coming into the weekend, I thought we were too far behind in points to win it, but we just came and knew we had what we had to do. And I had a great dice with Gary Holt at the start of both races. Luke was in there as well. We touched slightly yesterday. Gary tells me he touched me today a little bit, but that was a lot of fun for the first 20 laps of each race, and we just had to keep going, and we knew we had to win today if we were going to win, and we did it. So
big congratulations to Berwick Linton in car number 40, the 40th year of their car dealership on the Gold Coast. Stuart Costera coming home in second place to Gary Holt, Matthew Cherry, Robert and Shane Marshall rounding out Class A for the 2015 titles. Class B was won by Grant Sherrin and Ian Sherrin there, Peter O'Donnell, Michael Sherrin, David Ayres and Luke Searle after his run.
Yeah, great season for the Australian Manufacturers Championship. Some great racing over the course of the year. Unpredictable results. Got to make sure that Shannon's girls get in the shot there. Nicely done. And they're celebrating a great weekend at Wakefield Park Raceway to conclude the AmChamp season. Don't go away though, the AmChamps might be finished. There's plenty to play for in the Kumo V8s. They're coming your way after this as our Shannon's Nationals coverage continues from Goulburn.